The barrier to entry to creating a merchant that can sell some product over the internet is going to zero.
Starting a business used to take months, then the internet cut that down to weeks. Now, you can build one in just an hour. We sat down with Visa's head of crypto, Cuy Sheffield, and he shared how he thinks we're entering the third generation of small businesses, ones with no employees, no websites, and no co-founders. In this video, Cuy explains how that world is being built and how you can possibly be running hundreds of businesses from your phone by the end of this decade.
If you think about like what does the next generation of a small business look like, I would argue that we're entering into like the third generation. The first generation was it's a physical like mom and pop shop. And that has a pretty high barrier to entry. You need physical space. That's not cheap. You might need, a permit. You might need a building. You got to have a physical employee. Like, it's like there are a lot of small businesses. They're physical small businesses, but like that takes some like real work to like stand up a physical brick and mortar shop. Then we saw when the internet emerged, you had the second generation of small businesses where now you could build an e-commerce shop. You could build your own t-shirt shop. And, with companies like Shopify and Stripe and others, and Visa kind of enabling a lot of the payments, that became so much easier than starting a brick and mortar location and so much lower cost to create your online t-shirt shop than it is to get physical space. However, it still required some work. You still probably needed some employees. You would have to design a website, which is kind of intimidating and it takes work to do that. You've got to figure out fulfillment. There's still some barrier that you're probably not going to set up a Shopify store, an e-commerce shop overnight. And I think now this third generation, which I would think about as this headless merchant of a merchant endpoint, doesn't even have a website. It's literally just an API. That's it. And you could vibe code an API while you're laying in bed. And you could do that in an hour from your phone. And so I think we will see the emergence of what I like to think about as one human companies or OHCs. Think how much barrier it is to find a co-founder, find someone that you're willing to get into business with. I think you're gonna see a whole new class of entrepreneurs say, I don't need a co-founder. I've got an idea and I'm sitting in bed and I'm gonna, in my OpenClaw, vibe code, some service that I want to sell. And maybe I don't even need a website. Maybe it's literally just an endpoint that I'm going to make available and I'm going to sell that product to people's agents. I think that is the lowest barrier to entry to starting a business that has ever existed, that you could do in an hour. And I think that it's not just going to be someone does one. It's you could have an individual that has hundreds of these. And so it's when was it possible that you would meet an individual who's running hundreds of businesses from their phone? That was just there's no way that you could do that. And so I think that this barrier to entry is getting lower and lower, and being able to set up endpoints, receiving stablecoins, even just testing an idea. I mean, you could throw something out there and if it doesn't work, who cares? You spend a half an hour on it and you go on to the next idea. And so I think there's this opportunity for a renaissance in entrepreneurship where, there could be millions, hundreds of millions of people that are building these agent native businesses using agents as their employees. And then as they grow, then you hire other employees. But I think that that's great for people. I think that's great for the economy. And I think that the combination of vibe coding, agentic tools, merchant endpoints, stablecoins, it's all kind of coming together to enable that third generation of small businesses. And that's something we're super excited about and we want to help enable.
The reason that this idea of a headless merchant becomes more possible is not only because it becomes easier for you as an individual human to set up this endpoint or you kind of your own service, but rather than the historical demand side of humans having to comb through every Shopify store to see what you want to buy or every service to see what you want to buy. And so because you have agents that can iterate through more services faster, it is part of the enabling flywheel of why this headless merchant concept can really take off.